Well, we ain't gone yet. We're here. It's Phil and Pete, and we're talking Deep Space Nine. We will be back, by the way, with some Brazil expat journals. A few of you have been asking. In fact, Pete, I had somebody that asked me to be on it, so we may have to do it next week because he was like, "Put me on your show." Interesting little guy that has a nice story to tell. But how are you, Peter?
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
Doing it up, doing it up. It's raining today, guys, in Sao Paulo. So it's a little hard to hear, but I think we
Mm-hmm.
should be all right. We are going to go into some Star Trek episodes tonight, 8 to 13 from season 4. We're doing the Sword of Khaleth, Our Man Bashir, Homefront, Paradise Lost, Crossfire, and Return to Grace. And I will share here. I forgot to do it. It's been so long since that we've done this. But there you go. Before we get into the show, just a reminder for you Deep Space Nine fans, the journey continues on lower decks. Nana Visitor and Amir Sherman, I believe his name is. They guest starred there as Kira and Quark. So I haven't seen that episode yet. I like Lower Decks. It's cute. Kind of pokes fun at Star Trek, but does it in a cute little way. So I may watch that soon. And in the comics, Star Trek Deep Space Nine lives on. The official, unofficial comic book from IDW Publishing is putting out Captain Cisco's story. To know what the
Mm.
hell happened to Captain Cisco. These comics, I actually have not read any of them. I know they're really popular in the Trek community because they're like I said, the official, non-official. None of this is canon, but it's considered like the best, you know, Trek stories out there. So the new comic could answer questions Deep Space Nine fans have had since the show ended. I'm pretty sure they're not canon. Yeah, as far as I know. So that's what's happening. So Star Trek Deep Space Nine is alive and well, and there's a lot of talk of bringing in some Deep Space Nine characters into Trek because we've had TNG obviously our with Picard, and we've had Star Trek Voyager because we have Seven of the Nine in Picard, and also Janeway and Chakotay are part of this Nickelodeon show called Star Trek. I forgot the name. There's so many Star Trek shows now, but it's a kids show. Star Trek Phoenix or something. I forgot the name of the show. But Kate Mulgrew, the actress that plays Janeway, she's all of a sudden like interested in resurrecting her character in the regular timeline. So she plays a hologram of herself in the Star Trek show here. Uh, Prodigy, Star Trek Prodigy, that's the name. And obviously, we got some the original series love with Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. So where is our Deep Space Nine? Fans have been asking. So we got a little bit of it in Lower Decks, and hopefully we'll get some more somewhere along the line. The space station's still out there, still floating around. Like to see where these characters are. Sadly, some of our favorite characters or actors have passed away, so no more Odo and no more Nog, but and Avery Brooks is still out there doing his thing. He has said that he would be interested in coming back if the script is good. So let's see. I would love to just have a little bit more closure for Deep Space Nine. Anyway, let's get to it, Peter. We're gonna start off with an episode called "The Sword of Khalid." And as Pete knows, and as you guys know, I'm a sucker for Klingon stories, and this is a big old Lord of the Rings style
Mm.
Klingon story because this sort of Kales is this. It's all about Klingon myth, And uh, the myth is that this is the sword that was used to defeat all the enemies. By Khalis was able to defeat all his enemies and unite the Klingons, and it's basically the beginning of Klingon, the Empire. Okay, and legend says that once the sword is found again, then the Empire will be united once again. And of course, as they go out to find the sword, and who goes out there? Core, coming back, played by John Colicos. Worf and Dax go out to find the sword. That's where we get the kind of Lord of the Rings style. The sword just brings out the worst in everyone. And by the way, I forgot to do my usual here, guys. This episode was directed by LeVar Burton, our man Geordie. Story by Richard Danis, teleplay by Hans Belmler, and it premiered on November 20th, 1995. And it pretty much follows some pretty predictable beats. I can almost guess how Pete feels about this episode, but I can't wait to hear it. Because it's not great. Again, it's just I'm a sucker for the Klingons, and one of my notes here, Pete, I wrote Klingons are fucking dramatic, insane bastards, but I love them. They're so dramatic. They're drama queens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I dig it, and just going into all the mythology of it all, and Core going crazy. He turns on Worf, okay, when he realizes he's gonna take his right to vengeance, because Worf is kicked out of his whole family name has been destroyed because he didn't take vengeance, and all this stuff comes out. And in the end, they make the decision that hey, this sword just needs to get transported out into space, man. Like it's bringing out the worst in us, they're not the best in us. And that's pretty much it. There's not much more to this episode. I gave it a 3.5,
Yeah.
but I think it's just because I love Klingons to death. What do you think of this one?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, it does rely heavily on Klingon mythology. There's also, you need a little bit of background from other shows to really follow this. So if you're not an encyclopedia on that, there may be some things that you miss. Um, the It's a little Lord of the Rings. It kind of I mean, it's a quest for an artifact of power. The idea of what it's supposed to do, though, is quite different from Lord of the Rings. Like Lord of the Rings, the ring is just all about power, whereas I don't know. It's kind of almost like the dark saber in the Star Wars mythology that like it's you rule by divine right if you have this. So that's what the Klingons are fighting over, and Jadzia gets caught up in it too, which I thought was a bit silly. She thinks,
Yeah, what?
oh, she thinks like, oh no, man, neither of these guys deserve it. I should have it. So I don't know what that's all about, but yeah, it turns them all on each other, and they learn the lesson that it's too much power for one person of Klingon to have. Now I wasn't crazy about this. I did like the sets in this though. They had a really nice production design. So much time. It looks like they're just recycling set designs, which they often are. But here, when they go to the planet, because how this quest gets started is the old Klingon, which is named Kor, has come into possession of like a sheath that used to hold the sword, and this is where it came from. So they go to that planet to start looking for the actual sword, and it's this like weird, creepy underground cave planet. It's kind of unstable. So yeah, the sets were pretty cool, but the story pretty derivative of Lord of the Rings, and also really kind of relied on your prior knowledge of Trek mythology to really follow and or care about that much.
Yeah, 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 yeah. For me, when I say Lord of the Rings, it's just in the sense that the ring corrupts you. You know, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
although I mean it's different in the sense that from the beginning of Lord of the Rings, we got to destroy this shit. It's no good. but we even the good-hearted people get corrupted by the power of the ring's call to power. So that was like the twist with the sword, which I didn't see coming because I don't even remember having watched this episode first run. So it kind of caught me by surprise. I was like, okay, this is like the ring of power here.
Yeah, this has been used a lot in various treasure hunting stories over the years too. Like it
Yeah, yeah.
happens in like the Treasure of the Sierra Madre, where they all turn on each other after they hit their big score. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Nobody wants to let go of the Grail. So this
Yeah.
whole theme of like obsession over treasure that's beyond your understanding and driving people to turn on each other. It's an old trope.
Oh, for sure, for sure. That's why I said this episode is totally predictable, and it really relies on whether or not you're into the Klingons or not. I just happen to really be into Klingon mythology. Although there were some nice character moments, because I did like the fact that at the beginning, Worf, when he meets Core, it's like meeting your hero. This is like, oh my god, the guy that fought against Kirk, one of his, one of Kirk's biggest adversaries, and he's just a legend, and he's totally hero worshiping him for the longest time until he isn't, and it was kind of cool how that just flipped. And Core at the same time is loving the fact that this young Klingon is so into this and he's so honorable in that this that and the third, and how his character changes so much. And yeah, Jadzia in the middle, I guess he needed her in there to just mediate between the two, but she was kind of a waste in this episode. Not that she wasn't doing much, but decent, decent. Um, let's move on. I went first today only because I know you love this next episode, and I wanted to give you
Yeah,
the floor here to talk about our man Bashir. Bashir plays a 1960s secret agent in a holosuit when Garrick unexpectedly intrudes, but his help is needed when the DS9 computer uses the holosuit to store the patterns of other crew members during a dun dun dun. Speaking of old tropes, a transporter accident. No way. In Star Trek,
yeah.
transporter accidents. Anyway, this is an episode directed by Winrich Koibe, story by Robert Gillen, teleplay by Ronald D. Moore, and pretty fun one. Talk to us about it, Mister.
Yeah. I mean, it just starts pretty wild with like Bashir, like obviously having this masturbatory fantasy holosuite program where he's a secret agent. He's in Hong Kong. He's fighting secret spies. He's got his Russian babe on the side. And then Garrick walks in and kind of, catches him in the act. But Bashir kind of encourages him to go along. And really, I mean, you can't blame the guy. I mean, if I had holosuite and I could do a Bond program or something like that, hell yeah, sure, why not? So it's just Bashir being a big nerd until there is a transporter malfunction caused by the explosion of a runabout, and Commander Eddington, hero that he is, saves the day and manages to store everybody in the computer program that runs the holosuite, so they all become part of Bashir's fantasy program. And of course, this doesn't work if there aren't serious consequences. So the serious consequences is that they have to keep the game going,
Yeah,
no matter what, or they could potentially lose their patterns. So
exactly.
you got Kira is playing the Russian babe, who may or may not be working with the bad guys. Um, you also have Honey Bear, the babe scientist, who is Jadzia. O'Brien is an assassin, the Falcon. Um, Worf is in there too. I forget he's like an associate of the bad guy. The bad guy who steals the show in this is Cisco. He's like
Yes, of
he's
course.
such an evil genius. He's Blofeld. He's Blofeld. And
Yes.
yeah, his plan is to flood the rest of the world, wiping out most of the human race except for all the top scientists that he's kidnapped, and start this intellectual utopia. So he was great. I loved him as the bad guy. I like Kira in this as well. She was pretty good. And of course, Garrick has to be a backstabber. Garrick's like, this is getting kind of dangerous. We could die for real in here. And he actually tries to shut it down, but Bashir stops him. He shoots him. So they're playing for real here with real stakes. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's
Don't they die too if they get killed in the holosuite? Don't they die
yes,
in real?
yes,
I think there was a little bit of
yes,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So at the end of the day, it's just like a really fun take on not just Bond, but 1960s James Bond, and also a little bit of The Man from Uncle, which was a TV series based on Bond when Bond was first starting in the 60s. So yeah, the characters were great. They seemed to be the actors seemed to be having a great time with it. Bashir, you could totally buy him as a Bond type character. I mean, he's handsome, he's smooth, he's got that
Hmm.
British accent, and yeah, of course, Cisco as the big bad was just, of course, he is.
Oh, anytime you get Cisco in a position where he can just hand it up, whether it's the mirror universe or some weird alien virus or anything like this, I'm there for it. I'm there for it because he just chews up scenery, man, and he's so bizarre, but in the best possible ways. And yes, he was the best evil guy. And I did like O'Brien as the guy with the he had the eye patch, right? The henchman.
Yes, yes.
No, everybody was great in this. Everybody was great in this. I'm usually, I get sometimes I just get tired of Hollow Deck episodes or Hollow Suite episodes, but as usual, um,
They
DS9 just
haven't
managed.
really had that many in Deep Space Nine.
Oh, just wait, my friend. Just wait. Yeah, we're gonna get holodeck heavy in just a little bit, or hollow suite heavy in just a little bit. Uh, but the difference, from this and TNG era ones, there's a whole swath of Star Trek fans that really hate the holodeck. Anytime the holodeck is brought up, they're like, no, because TNG just overkilled it, and they were pretty repetitive. It was always just a malfunction, and
Hmm.
they get stuck inside, and then either they're stuck playing Sherlock Holmes or they're stuck playing Robin Hood or something. It's stupid after a while. But
Hmm.
I like that in Deep Space Nine. Um, it it's a little bit darker. The stakes are a little bit higher. People can die, And then when we get to Vic Fontaine, which is going to become a recurring character in the Hollow Suite, then they even get to the point of being deep and emotional and like it's a lot of shit going on with the Star Trek Hollow Suite and Deep Space Nine Hollow Suites, and I think it's mainly because it's not a holodeck, it's a Hollow Suite, and some freaky shit goes on in there that it's just between you and the Hollow Suite, whereas on I don't know if you want to be caught jerking off in the on the Star Trek Enterprise D, you
Yeah.
know, that being saved in the computer program. Whereas on Deep Space Nine, it's kind of anything goes, so it adds a little bit more maturity to the Hollow Suite. Like this is not like my favorite episode, but pretty decent. And then it introduces this as a new element to the show, which will continue to be an element to the show moving forward. So pay attention, guys. Pay attention. And one more thing that is a heavy element in Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, of course, is the politics. And we're about to get heavy on the politics, man. Two-parter here.
Hmm.
Front and Paradise Lost. We'll kind of just talk about both of them together. We'll slide into the other one. But this is an episode directed by David Livingston, written by Ira Stephen Bear, Robert Hewitt Wolf. So we got the heavy hitters up to the bat. Premiered on January 1st. Wow, New Year's. 1996. And the second episode is directed by Reza Badiou, and it's story by Ronald D. Moore and teleplay by Ira and Robert. Okay, we're on first name basis. And original air date January 8th, 1996. And talk about a insane little plot. 27 people are killed
Hmm.
in this diplomatic conference on Earth, and all evidence is saying it's the changelings. So Captain Cisco goes back to Earth, okay, to investigate, and he's accompanied by Odo, of course, because he knows a lot about the Dominion for being a changeling. He also brings Jake because that's an opportunity for Jake to meet Cisco's dad, who is not dead. And they do have a little line in
Yeah.
there where he says he had some heart problems, but he's not dead because up to this point he was, ex-father. Um, and Vice Admiral Layton puts him in charge, puts Cisco in charge of planetary security and trying to figure out how to protect the Earth from the security risk, which is the changelings. And one of those things is these regular blood checks, which Cisco's dad is not about to
Yeah.
do. That creates a little bit of tension there. And we do get a little side story with Nog, who is talking about his transition into Starfleet. And, he wants to become part of the Red Squad because if he's part of the Red Squad, then everybody's going to like him. And
But that's
this
not
first,
really a side story, though. That
no,
actually
it
becomes
doesn't,
a
yeah,
main plot
no.
point.
It becomes a main plot, yeah. It's a side story now. Like, if you're watching for the first time, I was like, yeah, where's this going? Kind of, whatever. But it sneaks up on you as a very integral part of the story, in fact. Especially when Cisco chews Nog out. That's such a great scene. But that's in the second episode. Um, this first episode is like how quickly, the friendly Federation and becomes militaristic, and all of a sudden rights are being taken away. All of a sudden, there's Starfleet security personnel patrolling the streets. Um, and what do we do? Cisco and Layton decide they need to prepare Earth for war, and they convince the president of the Federation to declare a state of emergency on planet Earth. So this first episode for me is near perfection. It's everything Deep Space Nine is good at, which is reflecting real world issues of war, terrorism, fighting the enemy, blah blah blah. But what does that mean on a national level? How does the well, obviously it's an American show, so they use a lot of American history. You know, how do Americans react to this? And I teach U.S. history at this high school that I work, and you have various instances, especially during World War I and World War II, where Americans did get paranoid, where if you were from Europe, you were probably seen as a commie or a socialist trying to, or if you were in a union. So lock these people up. They had the Espionage Act, and then we have the horrible internment of Japanese
Yes.
Americans in World War II. So and then but that's why DS9 is so fucking great, man. Because then you get into 9/11, post 9/11, 10 years after the show's off the air, almost, or whatever, how many years, 5 6 years after the show went off the air, and that's exactly what we're dealing with the Patriot Act, and how much of our freedom are we willing to give up, to fight this invisible enemy? Because then it's even more pertinent, I think, than the stuff that came before, as far as U.S. history, because with terrorism, it was really who is the enemy? We can put a face to them. It's these scary Arabs, but
Yeah.
it's not like it's the Germans. It's this country, and we can nuke them if we got to. It's where are they? So this show is so ahead of its time. DS9 is so ahead of its time. and for me, perfection. The second episode is pretty great too. Before I let you go, there is a great line in this episode from Warp. There, Worf is talking, and he says they talk about whatever gods and stuff, and he says that all the Klingon gods are dead. The ancient Klingon warriors slew them over a millennium ago. So there's a little moment of levity there.
Yeah.
Um, but pretty scary stuff, especially when Earth's entire power grid goes offline. Um, and
Hmm.
yeah, pretty scary stuff. But great setup. Great setup. What do you think of this, man? Because I love this one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This one was pretty damn good. Arrived at a good time. Great guest star in there as well. Robert Foxworth is Leighton. He's a real
Yes.
veteran, man. Guy's been around forever. Also, pretty nice casting of Cisco's dad, Brock Peters. He's kind of a douche. He's a grumpy old man, hates progress, hates technology, right? Because he runs a restaurant. Everyone eats
Mm-hmm.
out of replicators. Can't stop talking about himself. Can't stop complaining about other people. So you can see why maybe Cisco was going around telling everyone, "Yeah, my dad's dead." It's like I don't want to talk about the guy. He's a pain in the ass, but he does, because he is so old school. He does serve as a foil to raise these issues about how far are you willing to go in the name of security, right? I mean, he's the first one to be like, motherfucker, I'm not taking a blood test. He's the
Yeah.
first one to object to the presence of soldiers on the street. So yeah, he wound up being a pretty integral character in this. But I mean, the main guest star of this two-parter is definitely Leighton, who's just given off the wrong kind of vibes throughout. Also, the president of um, the Federation, which I guess is capitaled in Belgium somewhere, kind of a weakling. He basically goes along with whatever Starfleet tells him what to do. And you can
It's a
see
people.
how this is a dangerous position to be in. Like, it's almost like the military controlling the government, which is one step from a military dictatorship, which is, of
Yeah.
course, what starts to unfold by the end of episode one. After his
Mm,
power gets knocked out, they persuade him to declare martial law, and now the military is the authority. And the problem that's going to be facing Cisco and the other, democracy advocates in the second half of this two-parter is, once you see that, it's difficult to get back because you've already put
exactly.
the power in the hands of the people with the guns. Once you've done that, it's not so easy to get back.
Mm-hmm. For sure, paranoia sets deep. There's a line here from Joseph Sisko to Benjamin Sisko, and he says, "This business has got you so twisted around you can't think straight. You're seeing shapeshifters everywhere." Um, and as hard-headed as Joseph Sisko is and old school, and you're like, "Oh man, just get with it." But at the same time, it's like you said, he's got a point. It's like, how far are we willing to go? Like, we're supposed to be past this. This was like 20th century bullshit, dealing with militarized governments and uh, what do you call it, like curfews, and like that
Hmm.
was well, for Star Trek, I guess they would call it ancient history. It's like this is 200 years ago, 300 years ago,
Yeah.
So why are we even talking about this? Why are we even having this conversation? So he becomes that character, but much better done than Bashir during that episode with the Bell riots, where it was like so obvious that he was just, oh my god, I can't believe that people treated other people this way, and oh my, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, this is done much better as just a son and father confronting themselves. They're just standing on different sides of this political and or moral issue. And it leads us right into episode two, Paradise Lost, um, where, give me a second, Pete will talk about this, Paradise Lost, where things just start coming to a head a little bit more. As Cisco and Odo prepare for Dominion invasion, they discover a plot to place the Federation under military control. So we start to see that, hey, this isn't just all happening per chance, by chance.
Hmm.
What do you think
Yeah,
about it?
yes. Oh, it was great. It was a bit predictable, but it wasn't predictable in a way that that where you felt like it was a waste of your time to watch. It was good to watch
Yeah,
unfold. So I mean, first of all, because I mean, like, I think the previous episode was intended to divide the audience a bit, because I
mm,
mean, really, like a lot of these security measures, they seem reasonable. And like, it's like 9/11. Like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
like it's tougher to fly now. We have stricter border controls. Okay, I mean, under the circumstances, that seems perfectly reasonable. The thing is, though, it escalates over a period of time. Here, it's not a period of time. Here, it's like 48 hours. But I
Hmm.
mean, you can see how, like, in the US, it escalated where you get a demagogue like Trump who's like, yeah, if you're Muslim, you can't fly by executive order. Like, okay, that's a bit much money. But here it happens really fast. After the power grid gets knocked out, martial law is declared, there's soldiers on the streets, and we had this little thing going on in the background in the first episode of Nog wanting to join this elite unit at Starfleet Academy. And Cisco starts inquiring about this, and he basically tricks them. He finds out who's in charge of this because Nog lets him know they were on a top secret mission at the same time the power grid got knocked out. So Cisco finds out who's in charge of this, and he tricks them into saying, "Okay, like you guys fucked up." He doesn't know what they did, right? But he's trying to get them to say what they did, and of course, it turns out they were the ones who knocked out the power grid on Leighton's orders. Why? Because he feels that the government, the Federation government, is too weak to deal with the Dominion. And as we have seen, they are weak because he pushes them right around. And basically to give Starfleet control over the Federation and militarize things so they can deal with the Dominion threat. Now, what I really liked about this is that it really highlights the primary aim of terrorism. Um, in the reaction to 9/11 was the perfect example as well. Um, the idea of terrorism is to make people kind of turn on themselves, to collapse within. And that's exactly what happens here. There's a scene near the end where a shapeshifter tells Cisco, like, you realize there were only four of us here, and look at how much damage we did. Like, just four of us. Imagine what we could do in large numbers if we really set our mind to it. So it has an important message about what terrorists are trying to do. Like, it's thrown around like, oh, they're trying to destroy our way of life, but not in the way that a lot of people think. They're trying to take away that mindset of freedom, that mindset of liberty, and get people to just be afraid. And it here it works. It works perfectly, and
For
it's not
sure.
until the plot is exposed that they are able to turn things around. But there is a nice climax here, though. It doesn't just end with Cisco confronting Leighton. Leighton's not taking this lying down. Once he realizes he's been exposed, he tries to frame Cisco and all his people for being the
Hmm.
traitors. And ultimately, it comes about um, their innocence being proved as a result that Leighton's willing to blow up a ship full of innocent people, and Cisco isn't. So very nice touch on that because, like I said, the twist is kind of predictable, but the way it unfolds in the last act there was kind of like, oh, okay. Not only is better than Leighton just giving up, but it's kind of like the cherry on top.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where Leighton is, he's ready to take take charge of that moment, take advantage of this moment to take power. You start to see him unravel a little bit. Two
Hmm.
scenes that stand out for me in this second episode is one where um, Cisco interrogates Nog, because he does get him
Hmm.
into this red squad. And man, when Cisco switches up on Nog, that shit is scary, man.
Yeah.
Anytime Cisco switches up, and he does it, I like at the drop of a dime, he just bah, all of a sudden it's scary Cisco, and I'm like, okay, this is why I don't fuck with this dude.
Hmm.
But great scene, to get Nog to unravel a little bit of the mystery of how did the power grid go off and stuff like that, and the scene with the shapeshifter as O'Brien, where he does just
Hmm.
talk to Cisco when he says, "There's only four of us here."
Yeah.
And look what four of us are able to do. And it's great to see it in action because this was mentioned before, I think in season 2 or 3, that this is the MO of the Dominion. Is they don't just come out and attack you. They start by destabilizing, pitting, sometimes whole cultures against each other.
Hmm.
Wink, wink, nod, nod, to some of the conflicts that are happening right now on the show. And then once everybody's stabilized, then our friends, the Jem'Hadar, come in and blow shit up, and they do dirty work in case the Dominion aren't able, the shapeshifting, the changelings aren't able to just take over wholesale right away. So it's a great setup episode 2 for what's to come, which I think so. It has a double duty of just being a great episode in itself, but also, yeah, this is where this show is going. So get ready, get ready, and it's gonna get to that on a um, galactic scale, I guess you could call it. So
Hmm.
really great, really great. Let's see, got 2 more episodes to go. First up, we got Crossfire. Oh no, this episode. Odo's hidden feelings for Kira surface when the visiting Bajoran First Minister Shakar Eden begins to court her. Good lord, Pete, this is just like one of my least.
Hmm.
It's basically life in the friend zone, you know. And
Yeah.
Odo has these regular meetings with Kira every morning, where he's telling her about his, he's giving her the reports for the shit going on in the station. Although it's kind of crazy that what I did like about this beginning is how there's some public sex on DS9. Yet to arrest some people for some public sex, which is kind of cool. Um, and there's a little side conversation there that kind of comes back at the end with Quark telling Odo that he can't sleep at night because he can hear him practicing his shape shifting all night in his quarters. And then Shakar comes in, and who's the first minister of Bajor. And this is where it gets weird for me because Kira's love of her life died. Well, how long ago was this? I mean, it was last season, right? But
Yeah.
time wise, it's been less than a year, and she's already like falling for this new dude. Um, Meanwhile, Odo is just totally friend zoned. He's feeling shitty about it. He's feeling so shitty about it that he's making mistakes at work. And speaking of which, Cisco yells at him, which is nice. Again, Carrie Cisco. Um, and to the point where, I mean, they almost all die because Odo, what happened? Was it like he was in a turbo lift and there was
Yeah.
uh,
Worf has to take control of the turbo lift while they're in it, and
yeah,
Odo's
but it was
not
like a
paying
fake
attention.
voice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So Odo gives him control, but doesn't wait for Worf's code.
Yeah,
So Yeah, so the assassins get the code by faking Worf's voice because Odo didn't give them the code.
Yeah, they deep fake it. They deep fake Worf's voice. Um,
Hmm.
and this is such a boring episode. I mean, all this stuff sounds interesting. It's just not interesting. And then, I mean, the only saving grace of this episode is, and it's just more because of the strength of the actors, is the scene with Quark and Odo in their quarters, where
Hmm.
Quark is just telling Odo to like suck it up, man. It's like you got two choices: either you tell Kira how you feel, or you move on and
Hmm.
stop being a little pussy about it, basically. And of course, it's
Yep.
Quark. He's not gonna tell Odo that he really loves him, and that's the reason why he wants them to get better. He's gonna tell him that you're impeding with my profits, because you not doing your job is just it's messing up my profits. So get your shit together, okay? And that's about it. That's about it. There's not
Yeah.
much. I mean, Odo does a little bit of what do you call it, Citizen K moment in his quarters, breaking shit, and
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I mean, I think my main beef with this was that we've already kind of been over the whole like Odo loves Kira thing before, and he seemed to have kind of accepted it. Like he didn't get this jealous with Kira's last fling, which was,
yeah,
pretty serious, pretty like, almost like marriage type serious. And, this guy comes in out of nowhere and all of a sudden it's driving him this buggy. Like it's kind of inconsistent with what we've seen from in this relationship between the two before. It always kind of
exactly.
seemed like Odo's just accepted that, she's never going to be in love with him. She's going to have other men in her life, and he may not like it, but he doesn't take it like such a baby like he does here. So, yeah, this episode really rang false for me. And the subplot about the guys trying to kill Shakar, I mean, nothing really came of that except to make Odo look inept.
Exactly, and it sucks when you have to make one of your characters inept in order to get the point across. And inept, like Pete said, over something that has been pretty much established. Odo is willing to deal with, begrudgingly so, but he's willing to deal with it. And
Yeah.
Kiro was way more into the dude that died, Brolin, whatever the fuck his name was. One of my least favorite characters. Happy he died. Um, what was his name, Pete? The first dude. It was
I don't
Bene
remember.
Burrell. That was
Burrell,
yeah,
yeah, Burr something,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And that was a heavy duty love affair. This is just kind of a. I mean, I can sort of uh see Kira falling in love with this dude as what's the what do they say, it's rebound, maybe
Rebound,
he's a
yeah.
rebound guy, so that kind of sort of can make sense, but it's like less than 2 days old, so love affair, unless Odo was hoping that okay, Borel's out of the picture, now it's my turn, but there's been no indication of that throughout the death of Borel up to this point. He had that crazy episode in the cave where he thought he was declaring her love to her, and it ended up it was a shapeshifter, and that didn't
Yeah,
go
but that
anywhere.
was a trap, though. That was a
It was a
trap, though. I
trap.
think
Yeah, it
he,
didn't go anywhere.
yeah,
So it's really forced. And this I do remember from my first time watching DS9 is that they stick to this storyline, and it's so silly, and gets it only gets good when they resolve it, and Odo shifts his love attention to somebody else, and I'm like, thank God, because that's the most unbelievable little love story in DS9. It really does not work for me at all, and this is one of the worst episodes. Um,
hmm.
and if you've ever been friend zoned, guys, don't watch this for real because it'll depress the shit out of you. It's like a day in the life of being friend zoned, and it's like, yeah, horrible, horrible episode. Guys, tell her how you feel, guys. That is the lesson of this episode. Or girls,
Or
tell him
let
how
it
you,
go.
or let it go. Quark is right at the end. Quark is absolutely right in the end. And
Always
Odo
trust the
does
bartender.
soundproof. Oh, he's a great bartender. And Quark does, in the end, not Quark, Odo does soundproof his room, but he says it had nothing to do with you. This is a totally separate decision. That part,
Right.
see, Pete, that's the true romance in this,
Mhm.
in DS9.
Yeah.
Quark and Odo, that's the romance that I love. Because you know these two love each other, but you just can't say it because they're on opposite sides of the law. But they need each other so much, and that's cute, you know. The Odo talking to Quark talking to Odo, saying you're fucking up my profits. Look, you know, because you're all depressed and you're not doing your job. And Odo soundproofing his room. Oh, so cute. But anyway, let's move on. Not my favorite episode, although I did forget to do something, and it's to say that who wrote this terrible episode? Renee Echevarria, and directed by Les Landau. Although there is a nice little quote here: "People see you as the guy who always gets his man. Now you're becoming the guy who tears up his quarters and sits alone in the rubble. And no one is going to place bets on how long someone's going to sit around in the dark." There you go. Anyway,
Yeah.
last episode that we will be looking at tonight. Oh my God, is this true? One second, Pete. Oh, I just got scared. I thought that I had stopped watching on the next episode, but no, I'm a little ahead of this next episode. Return to Grace. This is an episode written by, story by Tom Benko, teleplay by Hans Weimler, and it's directed by Jonathan West. Premiered on February 5th, 1996, and we got our Ducat in this episode. We got Ziel in this episode. We got Garrick in this episode. And Kira finds out that Ducat. Well, actually, it's on you, so go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, this is basically a sequel to the episode where Kira and Ducat went looking for a lost transport or whatever, and they had this crazy team up where they wound up recovering Ducat's half Bajoran daughter, Ziel, who resurfaces here as well. So, yeah, it's kind of a direct sequel to that episode. And it's another crazy ass Ducat Kira team up.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love these episodes because they do have such an odd chemistry. She hates him, but she does come to see that he is a three-dimensional person, especially after he finds out he has, well, she finds out he has a half Bajoran daughter, but she's still like, he's a bastard. He's still a bastard. And just because I
Yeah.
see he's not as bad as I thought he was, I still kind of hate him. Meanwhile, Ducat in this episode, we see a side of him towards Kira that's been into that, but he comes pretty full on. It's like, oh my god, he's into her. He's totally into
Everybody,
her, which
everybody wants to fuck Kira.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Why?
So yeah, the premise of this one is that Ducat, first of all, did the right thing, didn't kill his daughter to save his reputation, but it ruined his
Woohoo.
life and his career. He got demoted. His wife left him, and yeah, his life is basically shit now, thanks to Kira. But he doesn't blame Kira. He thanks her for making him not kill his daughter. He's like, I'm glad I didn't kill her. So that's a nice Ducat moment there. I'm glad I didn't kill my daughter. So at any rate, they go off on a mission. They're off to like some kind of mission to negotiate with the Klingons and the Cardassians. And when they get there, I think like Kira's the Bajoran emissary, and and Ducat's the Cardassian emissary. But they get there to find out the Klingons have killed everybody. And we get this, besides the fact that Ducat's hitting on Kira throughout the whole trip, we also get this underlying feeling that Ducat feels like Cardassia has gotten weak for even talking to the Klingons. He's like, man, the old days, this never would have happened. But ever since your people beat us, like, Cardassia has been given up too much, too many concessions, and now people see us as someone we can just walk all over, or who can be just walked all over. And as it happens, they come across a Klingon bird of prey, and they're in this rinky dink transport ship because that is all Ducat is worth. It's his ship, and they've given him a piece of crap with like no weapons. They can't defend themselves. They have weapons, but they're like not equipped to take on a bird of prey. But Ducat's like, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway. And Kira knows he means it, but she's like, "Well, you're gonna kill me if you do that, not just you and your daughter." So, knowing that he's going to go through with this anyway, she kind of feels obligated to help him get a best case scenario outcome, which I will just say is done with a lot of techno babble. I mean, I couldn't follow half the shit they did to turn this transport ship into something that could take on a bird of prey. But it's like, well, if we reroute the thingamajigs to the whatchamacallits and then
Yeah, they adapt the
transmit it.
planet web somehow. It turns it into a Q ship. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but whatever.
Yes. Yeah, so there's a lot of techno babble that helps them get out of this situation. Um, they wind up taking the bird of prey without killing too many people, and then Ducat, being Ducat, blows it all up and kills everyone anyway, which kind of shocks
Yeah.
Kira, but it shouldn't have shocked viewers. It's like he's going to do that. But
Mhm.
in terms of the overall mythology of the show, it does have pretty long ranging consequences because it makes Ducat realize that he's not going to be happy in his current place in Cardassia. He's going to fight the Klingons, even if he has to do it on his own. So he basically breaks off from Cardassia and becomes a one man army, and he leaves Ziel in the care of Kira on Deep Space Nine. So we have
Exactly.
another new interesting supporting character there. Great episode though. I love the dynamic between these two. Whenever they are like the odd couple of the show, and
Mhm.
the space battle stuff was pretty intense, and it marks a minor turning point as well in terms of the politics of the show. So yeah,
Yes.
big thumbs up for this one.
Um, and he does do. They actually take that from Star Trek Three, where they do the switcheroo. Because Star Trek Three, the climax is a little bit. It's actually with the Bird of Prey too, where Kirk and company surrender the ship, and they say, "Okay, just beam on over," and they manage
And
to
they
either
blow it up. Yeah.
yes, because as the Klingons beam over to the Enterprise, the skeleton crew of the Enterprise beam over to the Bird of Prey, and then they blow up the Enterprise. So little callback to that. No, I loved it. 3.5. I gave it great character development for Ducat, and this is this kind of a zone here where Ducat becomes this character that we, the audience, start to kind of, sort of, a little bit like. And it's just a credit to the
Yeah.
acting.
Well, he tries to get Kira to come along with him.
Yes, even gets, yeah, exactly.
He
Um,
tries to he tells her like, man, like on Deep Space Nine, you're just like a bureaucrat. Like that's not who you are. I fought against you, during the occupation. You're a warrior. You're a soldier.
I
Like
do too,
come with
yeah, because,
me, and you can be a soldier again. I mean, this is
yeah,
partly because he's trying to get in her pants, but
hmm for sure. And I love the line where he tells her, I think you have a thing for men in power. And that's one reason he's trying to get his power back. He's like, wait till I get
yeah,
my power.
Yeah,
So he needs to get back to a powerful position because he wants to bang Kira. Uh, so yes, but who doesn't want to bang
yeah.
Kira?
He makes fun
Uh,
of. Yeah, he makes quite a bit of fun of Shikar as well. Does he
yes,
call him like a lumbering field hand?
yes, yes. No, it's all good stuff in this episode. Um, and Garrick, Ducat just on this, but still you see where he's just this egomaniac, where he's just going to go on this personal battle because they do give him a position back after capturing the ship. So he does get a little bit
Hmm.
of love from the Cardassians for doing what he did, but
Hmm.
he doesn't have all that he wants. So he's gonna go on this personal mission to against the Klingon Empire to bring glory back to his name, to steal a life from the Klingons.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and it's interesting
And
how
he
DS.
starts the fight with the bird of prey because he's insulted.
Yeah, they didn't shoot at them, but the Klingons, it's all about honor, so it'd be unhonorable. In honor, what is it? Unhonorable or inhonorable? It would be there was no honor as
Dishonorable.
dishonorable. There you go.
Dishonorable.
But the Klingons would say
Yeah.
there is no honor in shooting down a lowly cargo ship. So that's why they jack it. They juice it up to make it seem like it's carrying some more precious cargo as a trick, as a decoy. But cool episode, and like Pete said, it does um, add this extra plot point of now ZL is going to be taken care of by Kira, and of course that's going to create a bridge between Kira and Ducat. And this is my favorite little stretch with Ducat from what I recall from having watched it last. I'm still not on season 5, but I can't wait to get there and see what happens with this because, well, I know the end result. That I do remember, but I'm not going to spoil that right now. But good stuff, really good stuff. And Pete, we forgot to do something before we get to our skip and watch, which is to honor somebody that passed away. We should have done this at the beginning of the show. But Lewis Fletcher passed away, our great Kai Wynn. Okay, she died on September 23rd. She was in only 14 episodes, but talk about a presence, because you feel like she was in like 100 episodes. Given how great of a character Kai Wynn is, my child, you know, wonderful actress. Also known for, of course, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where she won an Oscar, and she
Oh
used to be
yeah.
a little bit. She was a little upset.
Yes.
I was reading a little bit about the fact that she didn't like that she was kind of typecast as the evil um, characters in throughout most of her career. I think she also did. I read the book, but I couldn't get through the movie. Flowers in the Attic, I think, was kind of popular for her in the 80s. And then she got into Deep Space Nine, man, and she killed it. This little article here from Fanside,
Forever.
yes, it has a
Oh yes, yes she did. Yes.
in the hands of the prophets. They're putting here as essential watching, essential Kai Wynn episodes. Season 1, episode 20. Totally agree. One of the best. Her first big appearance, where she is responsible for blowing up the school, right? And
Yeah.
then you have they're putting here the collaborator is another great episode to watch, where she totally undermines Burrell, and she uses Kira, unwittingly to help undermine Burrell at the time when there's the election. For me, well, here they have a season 7 episode, so we're not going to go into that. But for me, so far as we've gotten, I definitely would say "In the Hands of the Prophets" is one of her best episodes. But I do like Oh, I like almost every episode she's in, but I do like the one where Burrell is dying, and
Hmm.
she's such a complex character because it's that it's she plays that role of she's obviously you know just wants him alive because she knows he can do this deal better and bring peace between the Cardassians and the Bajorans, which seems like a honorable venture, but at the same time, she's just using him, and it's and I love the scene where Bashir just calls her out for like, man, you're making this guy suffer just because you can't do this shit yourself. Great scene, but she plays it so perfectly where you can see both sides of it. Where it's like maybe she is just, she just really needs him, but she's torturing the motherfucker. And then the other one that I think is great
Hmm.
is where she, even though she's not heavy in it, but when she finally becomes like the head honcho of Bajor, and the country just goes into a civil war, and it's so great to see her
Yeah.
kind of knowing what to do, but still trying to hold on to power. And she's just the best conniving bitch. With all respect to Louis Fletcher, because that's just credit to her acting, man. She's just one of the great villains of Trek history. So rest in peace, Miss Fletcher. You got any Kai Wynn moments you like, my child?
Uh, yeah. No, no, that about covers it.
Yeah, well, she's gonna be in some more great episodes coming up. Kai Wynn, it's incredible. These her and Garrick, they're not in that many episodes, man, but you feel like they're like in every single episode because they have such a presence. Uh, but let's get to our skip and watch, guys. For this week, we have the Sword of Calais. Is that a skip or watch for you?
That's a skip for me.
Yeah, you know what? I'm with Pete unless you really like Klingons. Now, if you like Klingons, you might dig this one, but it's pretty skippable. You won't miss much if you skip it. Arman Bashir.
That's a watch for me for sheer entertainment value. It doesn't add anything to the overall story, but man, it's just so much fun.
Yeah, no, fun episode. I'm with you. I would say watch it. It's not my favorite, but it's cute. Homefront and well, we'll put them together because you gotta watch one and the other. So Homefront and Paradise Lost.
Yeah, yeah, definite watches. Really among the best two-parters up to this point in the show, actually.
I'm with you. This is not just a watch. This is a must watch. You got to not only for the plot, because if you
Hmm.
miss this, you need this to know what the hell's going on a couple seasons from now. But just as a standalones, wonderful episodes. And then we got Crossfire, the Friend Zone from Hell.
Yeah, I mean, definite skip.
I'm with you. This is the rotten egg of this bunch. And then finally, return to Grace, Dukat hitting on Kira, fight some Klingons.
Yep, that is a watch. Excellent episode. Gotta pretty much
I'm
watch
with
all the
you.
Kira and Dukat episodes. They're great together.
Yeah, I'm with you. And again, it also adds to the drama, to the lore, to everything going on. This is definitely an important episode um, for
Hmm.
future watch. So watch that for sure. All right, guys. Sorry we haven't been on that long. I'll share these in a couple more groups, get our viewership up. But thanks those that do hang out with us and have been hanging out with us. Yeah, because we love doing this. Just been kind of crazy last couple months or so down here in Brazil. Okay, see you guys. Live long and prosper. Until next time. Bye bye.
Cheers.